Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Own Your Essence podcast, where we get to have deep transformational conversations with some of our favorite people. I am your host, April DeMille, and today we are going to speak with Liz Casper. She is a former medical doctor, an author of two books, and an artist. So I'm actually really excited to speak to Liz. Okay. Ooh, I love your fancy background, lady.
So
It's
fancy.
it's so cute. It's so cute. It's appropriate too right now with all the retrograde stuff happening. So that works.
Yeah.
So I just read your introduction, and I would love if you could tell the audience a little bit about where you're at in life right now as a writer and an artist, and then maybe we can kind of backtrack and unravel how that transition came about.
Sure. My name's Liz Casper, and I just finished my second book called Learning to Heal, which is all about medicine, both as a student, a resident, a practicing physician, and then as a patient myself with cancer. But my first book was about being diagnosed at age 54 with bipolar disorder. And then I retired from the world of medicine entirely in 2023. And I've been writing books and painting and doing a lot of other artistic things since I left the world of medicine a couple of years ago. And I found that writing really is very healing for me. Um, when I'm in the flow, it's like time stands still, and the words just come out of me. And um, the books are really raw and they tell you, like, really what it's like to be diagnosed with bipolar disorder at age 54, which was just like a diagnosis out of the blue.
Yeah.
But really, what led up to that was decades of depression diagnoses, seasonal affective disorder. Part of my healing has been realizing that my winters, I grew up and was living most of my life in the Pacific Northwest, where it's very cold, dark, wet,
Yeah.
round the clock in the winter. It's just really gray. And all those things were contributing to my mental health. So I've
Mhm.
since moved to the southeast of the country. And now I'm in a place where I get light and bright every day. And that really helps with my mental health.
Yeah.
Um, so, really, now my life is just about trying to help other people that may be struggling with mental health diagnoses. And it's estimated that fully 50% of us will have a mental health diagnosis in our lifetimes. And that's a staggering statistic when you
Yeah.
think of all of um, the societal baggage that comes along with a mental health diagnosis. That's a lot of people. So I think it's important that we're able to talk about what really is a mental health diagnosis, and then how can you best advocate for yourself and stay healthy. And for me, realizing that I am extremely affected by the weather
Yeah.
and by rain and cold, dark, wet, that was a really important part of my healing. And once I realized that, then I really started to write, and I was able to get out of my body the trauma and the drama that led into this diagnosis of bipolar disorder. In My symptoms really got out of control in 2018, and 2019 was when I was officially diagnosed and put into um, one of many mental health institutions. I was, excuse me, finally hospitalized at UCLA in LA when I was living there. And that began my healing journey of really not just accepting the diagnosis, but knowing what I needed to do to stay healthy, which
Right.
is Bipolar disorder is a really tricky illness because the lead up to a full blown mania is actually quite nice. It's quite
It's
pleasant.
pretty euphoric. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like being on cocaine if I knew what that was like.
Yeah.
24/7, you're
Hmm.
hyper creative, you're sometimes hypersexual, you're hyper energetic, need very little sleep, which I have to say, being a doctor worked very well for me. A
Right.
lot of energy, need for very little sleep worked very well for many decades.
Right.
But then a very dramatic, traumatic breakup of a long term relationship, coupled with the death of two of the people that I really looked up to, Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, in 2018, just set me off. I went into a dark depression as I was quite familiar with, but then the mania came and I
Yeah.
didn't have any idea what that was. And when my fiance at the time ended up breaking up with me and moving out, I had 3M sticky notes of all shapes, colors, sizes all over my house, like with ideas. And I worked on my fourth patent. I trademarked maybe 100 different phrases. I registered 100 URLs. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, you become unproductive because you're so productive.
Yeah.
It's just like chaos. And
It's in hyperdrive.
yeah, and yet it's so alluring,
Hmm.
and so I describe it in the book, in Brilliant, Beautiful, Bipolar. I describe it as your life is in 10 parts when you're diagnosed with bipolar. And the first 9 parts are really fine. You get into the hypomanic stage. Everybody thinks you're charming, clever, you name it. And things are going well. And then that ninth part, the wheels start to come off. You start to get less sleep, more irritable,
Yeah.
paranoid, scared, things start turning dark. And then on the 10th part of your ten parts, you're like, the wheels come off. You end up
Yeah.
in jail, you end up in a psych ward, you end up dead, you end up without family and friends, and a lot of times your bank accounts are completely empty.
Right.
So it's just this very poorly understood problem where your body is making the substance that you shouldn't have. If you're a Coke addict, you shouldn't have Coke and you can get away from it. But when it's your own brain making too much dopamine,
Yeah.
it's tough because the medicines that you're supposed to take down your creativity. They
Yeah.
take down your feeling that you're,
They watered
so
down a lot of stuff.
they suppress everything. And so
Yeah.
it's literally and figuratively a very tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And coming to accept that you have bipolar disorder is very difficult for some of us, as it was for me. I just was like, there's no way. And I used to take care of people. This is described better in my second book, but I used to take care of people in the psych ward when I was in residency. And for $75, this is back in the 90s, I got to admit a psych patient to the psych ward for the psychiatrist who would come in the following day. And so I had experience like working on a psych ward and dealing with very, very ill people. And yet, when I became the patient behind the curtain,
Yeah.
it was like, holy cow, this is just unfreaking believable how I was treated. Not just me, but everyone
Yeah.
in the psych ward. You're
Yeah.
treated like subhuman a lot of the
Yeah.
times, like cattle.
It's just
So
inhumane.
yeah, oh, it's horrible. And so the difference between medical care, where I've had my fair share because I had cancer, you're treated like a respectable human being with value. And then you go into the psych ward, and there's very little difference between the psych ward and jail. I can tell you that because I've been in both. Part
Right.
of
Yeah.
what happened to me when I was having this full blown mania is I was roofied in Malibu by a billionaire who's since passed on, thank God. But he roofied me, and then I don't know what he did to me, but I ended up on the streets of Santa Monica, left for dead, and ended up in jail. So I've been in jail, and there isn't much difference between jail and psych wards.
Yeah.
So um, it's a pretty traumatic thing to come up with this diagnosis, but then the healthcare system is really subpar in this regard, of treating mental illness. At least it has been for me.
Yeah.
Very difficult to be in psych wards. But sometimes when bipolar gets out of control, which for me, it always started with a seasonal depression because I've had 3 episodes now. The book that we're talking about on this platform today was after my first long, prolonged manic episode of about 18 months. And then I went into treatment, and then I had cancer. And then I've had a couple of episodes since. And it's just life altering
Yeah.
to have this, but there's only about 3% of the population that has bipolar worldwide, but it's becoming diagnosed more and more in women and women in their 50s, and they're not sure why.
Yeah. So that that's a lot to like have to like experience and go through. There's a lot of breakdowns and collapses happening, and I kind of want to go through some of that. One thing that you touched on that I think is really potent information to have is like you talked about being aware that a trigger for you was the seasonal, right?
Mhm.
Where you're living, the seasonal depression. Sometimes those were big triggers for you. And I love that you talk about that because I feel like the first part of managing anything in your life is knowing what your triggers are and
Right.
having to have that awareness takes you have to look at it through a different scope, right? Like it's really hard sometimes to I feel like in my world awareness is just so like everybody has awareness. It's common sense, but the more that I podcast with people and the more that I connect with others, I'm realizing it's really not that common. I'm like it might not be as common as I think it is. It might be more natural to some than others, but I've talked to some people and I'm like, "Wait, what? This isn't nor what this I feel like that should be normal for everybody, right? But it's not." And that's where I have to go, oh, like not everybody has that inner compass just like readily available. It takes a
Mhm.
lot of practice and that makes sense. And so I think that you talk about, being aware of your triggers and how that's helped you. You talked about also, that you've become also a cancer patient. So you've been through the mental health and the cancer side of things, the clinical side of things there. And one of the questions I think that came up for me was since you were a practicing doctor and you'd seen mental health, you'd actually been involved in some of the mental health aspects and probably earlier in your, career. Did
Mhm.
you ever have moments where you were like, this looks familiar. I feel like I would diagnose somebody with something like this. Like this, did you ever have moments where it was like, do I have this going on? Like, you know what I mean? Like where you felt like you were self-diagnosing almost and you had that nudge or that question like, do I have bipolar or is that not something that came up for you?
No, it didn't. Not the bipolar, like the
Okay.
depression, I recognized in myself, my cyclic depression over the decades. But what happens with traditional antidepressants is they can often make bipolar worse.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can unroof a manic episode. And so I was put on multiple different medications starting like in 1988, I think, or 90, when Prozac first came out.
I was
And it
actually
made
going to
me,
ask which ones helped and which ones hurt. So that's actually great that you're talking about that.
yeah, I've had several over the decades and none of them worked long term.
Okay.
And oftentimes they made me feel worse,
Okay.
more amped up, but it wasn't mania. It was just like agitation, irritation, that kind of thing. So the traditional medicines didn't work for me, like just depression medications. But to earn a bed in a psychiatric hospital, you have to be pretty sick. And so when I was the doctor taking care of those patients, I didn't relate like
Yeah.
necessarily, oh, this is something I've been through
Like, yeah, like
too.
it wasn't like a mirror where you were like, oh, I've experienced this too. And it wasn't that kind of reflective moment.
No, but when I was in the psych wards that I've been in situations where I'm like, oh, I admitted somebody like you before.
Oh,
So
yeah.
once I see it on the inside, but you know what? I think the whole idea of mental health care being carved out from regular medical care
Yeah.
just seems so wrong to me. Like,
Because they're so connected.
yes,
Yeah.
and treated so poorly in
Yeah.
psych wards,
Yeah.
and they're really horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
I was
I've heard
assaulted
that. I've heard that
in a psych
from
ward.
a lot of people. I've heard about
Yeah.
how abusive they are. I've had a family member that had an experience only for like 3 days, I think, in one, and it made everything worse. And these people are already people that are struggling so badly with traumas and pain, and then they get treated like animals.
Yeah, and I would say half the psych ward is filled with homeless people
Right.
that definitely have mental health problems, without a doubt. And then you've got people like me, former doctors,
That are
in the
trying to get
same
well.
milieu as people that don't have a pot to pee in. And
Right.
there's no differentiation within the actual psych ward of where are you at in either your socioeconomic level or your psychiatric level. Like, are you here because you need a timeout? Like, it's really interesting. I've been to one really fancy place in Malibu after I got
So what is it, would you say that they just kind of like like they just stamp everybody as like a problem. Everybody's equally just a problem, and that's how they're treated.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's fucking heartbreaking.
And I'm sitting in the same meetings as people who are trying to find, are they going to have a place to live when they get out, versus people like me that need the psychiatric help but not the social help. I
Right.
don't need
You didn't need
help
those
finding.
resources. You needed something
Right,
different.
but
Yeah.
there's no.
You still have to go through their whole loops and all the
Yeah.
rigmarole or whatever.
And then another thing that's very different is when you're in a medical floor for like let's just say a broken hip or a heart attack, they have discharge planners and they have people that help you find a skilled nursing facility or assisted living or home care, whatever you need. In the psych wards, you're
Yeah.
just let out, like it's in the book, literally.
They
And I
don't
was
set you
like,
up for success or help
oh my
you.
gosh, I was hospitalized in Las Vegas twice. And on the second visit, which was a psych ward admission, they literally took me to the side door of the hospital, which had no doorknob to get back in,
Okay.
locked it, and left me out on a hot pavement. That was my discharge. I didn't live there. I didn't have a car. I didn't have resources. So I was like essentially homeless, but I was
Yeah.
just shocked. I was like,
So you
there's,
didn't even like they're just like, "Okay, bye, have fun, figure it out." And
you're free to go.
you're still
Yeah.
coming out of the biggest traumatic season
Yeah.
or episode even of your life and they're just like, "Have fun, bye. Bon
Good luck
voyage."
to you.
Yeah, that's fucking
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Uh,
But the thing that I think people don't understand about bipolar disorder is how alluring it is.
right.
It is so hard to remember those times where I was manic. And the reason why I was so fascinated with your background as a psychic medium is that when I was manic, I had access to timelines
Yeah.
that others don't have. I have access to information
Yeah.
that others don't have that is independently verified. It's so crazy good at times.
Well, because you're writing a frequency of the oneness, so you get access
Yeah.
to all the expansive information, right? Like you're on that wave. But in my own experience, I've lived with family members. I had a stepmom that was actually, she's passed on, but she was very manic, bipolar. She had these episodes, and living with her was definitely an experience of its own. And I've had other family members that have had, and friends that have had experiences. But I worked in mental health for a time, and it was fascinating because there was this one person that was diagnosed schizophrenia, and he was insanely accurate
Mhm.
with spiritual stuff that I could verify right then and there. Like I could absolutely give him validation immediately on the things he was picking up on. And
That
so
gives
what,
me chills.
right,
That gives
because one of the things that I have always had a firm stance on is that I don't think mental health is really what people think it is. I think that people are tapped in and their humans go into overdrive overload. It's too overwhelming. Your human's not mature enough for that kind of expansion and information yet. And so your human's freaking the fuck out because this is too much. You're not ready for this, right? And I think that there is a gradual process that has to happen for that to align in a healthy way. And I think these are people that have, for whatever reason, been able to access too soon in an undisciplined way, right? And so it literally makes you look like you're fucking insane. And I've had moments of my own, and I talk about this openly where, um, people around me thought I'd lost my shit too because I was fucking calling the cops and making 3-page police reports about my angel that was just there. And I could see him, nobody else could see him, but I've got a 3-page police report where I called the cops on my angel because it does actually come out looking insane sometimes. And
Well, here's what I think. I would take what you just said and say that's absolutely true,
right.
that we're
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
information into our psyches that others don't have access to, right?
Right.
They're too closed off, they're
Whatever
whatever
it
the
is.
reason
Yeah.
is. But what I did learn after 3 of these episodes is that when I'm open to the expansiveness of goodness,
Hmm.
and other like psychic abilities. I have oh gosh, precognition. I have lots of those senses that other people just have shut down.
Right.
But what I found is when I'm in that manic state, things are going really well. Things are great. I'm getting visions. I'm getting clarity on things that others aren't. I'm open to the negative entities as well. And
Right.
every single time I've ended up in the hospital, it's because a negative entity has come into this psychic abundance and literally fucked me up.
Right. And so,
So,
and sometimes that can just be a matter of your beliefs and where they're grounded out and your grounding practices. And it can also be a matter of since you're pulling all that stuff through your own filters and your own reference system, if you've got a lot of trauma, pain, and fear wrapped up in there, then that's how it's going to show up. And
yep.
so that can be very, very confusing and very scary.
It's very much like how they say when you do like a psychedelic or a mushroom or
Right.
something, if
Yeah.
you go in with a bad mood or a
Yeah.
lot of trauma,
You can
you can
have a
have
bad
a
trip.
really bad trip.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And
Absolutely.
same thing when you're manic. Even if it starts out good, you can't stay burning the candle like that forever. And
Right.
then the other
Your
thing I was
human
going to
starts to suffer.
totally, and I literally, each time that I've been hospitalized after a manic, a psychotic break, if you will, um, the healing, like literally, my brain feels fried for
Oh
months
yeah. Yeah.
afterwards.
It takes it out of you.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
like all
Yeah.
gas, no brakes for
Yeah.
just however many weeks or months, or in my case, the first time, 18 months. Your brain, like literally, I feel like I've had brain damage
Yeah.
afterwards
Well, I mean, that's
because
because that's what it does.
it's like a smoldering nuclear fire in your brain, and
Yeah.
people just don't understand it. Literally, each time I'm manic, I lose 20 to 30 pounds like that. You
Mhm.
don't eat, you don't sleep, you, well, in my case, I'm, hyper creative, but you can't be that way forever. But the psychic abilities that have come into my life when I've been manic are just, I still just sometimes daydream about them because a lot of the things that I foresaw in 2018, 2019 are literally now coming true.
Right. Yeah.
I
You
just
get
saw them way ahead of time.
right. You get access to records that like literally blow your brain
The
open.
Akashic Records.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
You
got
do.
access to my own Akashic Records one
And
time, and I was,
even worldwide ones. Like you get to see things that I remember one time, and this was actually after my daughter had died. I was going through a lot of
sorry.
thank you, the traumatic brain injuries of that, right? And I was still not so disciplined in my own. Well, actually, at the time, I still was not even admitting that I was a psychic medium. I was still in the closet about it, very much so. And I remember one time sitting there and seeing adoption records, or no, was it adoption records? I'm sorry, seeing birth records and adoption records for families in like 2040. And I was seeing their names and where this baby was going and all the things. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, is this for real? And I'm writing this shit down and I'm like looking at all these trees and these family trees and these timelines. And I was like, oh my God. Like I honestly, I kind of wish I still had that piece of paper, but like I went through things like that where I was like, did anybody else see this? Like, does anybody like, you know what I mean? There were moments that I even questioned my own sanity because I also was not grounded and I was still denying the piece of me that was psychic medium. I completely denied that at that time. I was not even willing
Mm.
to admit it. And it took me owning it and learning how to accept those pieces of me before my world did finally ground and I felt more anchored and more aligned in my human and my human had less massive collapses, right? That didn't have to happen anymore.
I think that denial creates distress.
So much, so much.
And once you become comfortable with either your diagnosis or your gift or whatever it
Whatever.
is,
Yeah.
like what I've had to do is just zip it. Like I don't talk that much anymore about what I now see in the future. And because I
Right.
still have all those abilities, I just don't have the mania that goes along with them.
Right.
So I'm in this position now where I get visions that are very clear. I get future predictions that I used to say, well, this will eventually happen. And people would be like, you're crazy. This is never going to
You're
happen.
like, thanks, tell me something I didn't already know.
Yeah, it's like, well, I got that diagnosis.
You're
But
like, uh-huh, stamped and approved.
yeah, it's just, I miss being manic. And
Yeah.
I've never told anyone that because, my whole family every day is like, did you take your meds? They want me to be healthy. And of course I do too, but the mania and the hypomania in particular is just so alluring. But now finally, what ended up happening for me, April, is that after the third break where I ended up in the hospital again, I had to look really seriously at my triggers. And that's
Yeah,
what we started this conversation
that's
about.
right.
And my triggers were tied up in living in the Pacific Northwest nearby my mother, who was very bipolar when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it. We didn't have a name for it. I just knew that I felt like I grew up in a blender, like literally it would be
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
you
Yep.
obviously grew up with something similar and the
Yep.
craziness that surrounds that. So I always thought I was the survivor of the family by surviving the trauma and the drama of my family. It's in the book, the Brilliant, Beautiful Bipolar book, which I should say I did not name that or did not title that. My mom did. But
Okay.
since the bipolar stuck, I thought I'd take the other two because I like the alliteration. But
Yeah.
um, I forgot what I was going to say about that. But I had to say, and this was really hard for me, I had to say to my mother, who I'm very close to, I have to put my mental health over my relationship with you. So I'm going
Right.
to leave the Pacific Northwest and go to the sun. I had done that in 2018 when I moved pretty much full time to California to start a new business in Los Angeles. And I was going down there because that was where the business was going to be located, but also because the sun, I wanted the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And California was not good for me. It's not all documented in the book. The book covers about 10% of what really happened during those 18 months, but um I didn't want to go back to California. So I followed another family member down to the southeast where it's sunny almost every day, and
Yeah.
I wake up to bright, beautiful light. And that's just what I needed. And this is the first year that I have not had the seasonal affective disorder, which for me is the on ramp to mania.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For you,
um,
just knowing that trigger is so empowering, just knowing any of them.
it's life
Um,
changing.
it absolutely is. I
Yeah,
remember, so I lived in Utah for, a time. And I love Utah. Beautiful place,
it's
uh,
so beautiful.
absolutely gorgeous place. And I have family there, and I I I would if things were the way I wanted them to be, I'd live in Utah, but I would not live in the northern or the central parts. I'd be in the southern part of Utah. But the one thing that I experienced in Utah, and this is also when I was dealing with being a first-time mom, postpartum depression, things like that, was the season, the sadness, right? The sad season, right? Like, so it, you live in a place and it snows 8 months, 9 months out of the year, and you get maybe three or 4 months of good weather, I couldn't do that either. It was too much for me.
Yeah.
It was really hard to live like that. Like cabin fever is a fucking thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. Now, I can't say that I love Texas any better because it's so fucking hot here all the time that
Hmm.
like in the summers here, it feels like you're literally playing in hell. Like it's like volcano weather or something. Like it's terrible. So I still am very sensitive to the heat too. But there's still like I can at least go outside if I want to.
Right.
There's a little more flexibility there.
Yeah, that's so important. And my mom finally got to the place where she could say, "You need to go."
Yeah,
Like
right. You have to
she's
honor what
Yeah,
works for you.
and it took me a long time to say that because I was afraid she was just gonna never talk to me again if I said, "Hey, I gotta move." I mean, we don't even live together. It was just, I'm her support structure at her age, 84. So,
Yeah.
um, but I wanted to tell you, it's in my second book. I had a near death experience during the time that I was manic of the first book. And I I'll explain it very quickly, but
Yeah,
I
yeah.
go through
Take
the
your time.
tunnel to the
Okay.
light,
Yep. Yeah.
get up there, and it was very ephemeral, nothing super clear,
Mm-hmm.
but kind of like pearly gates. There was an entity there. He reviewed my life. He says to me, you've been good. And I was like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I
Yeah.
know I've been good, right? And I didn't swear. And
Oh, I
then
do. I don't
I
hold back.
got in through the gates and
Yeah.
I went into this area that was the brightest light I have ever seen in my
Yeah.
life. It was blindingly bright, but it didn't hurt.
Right.
And there was the most beautiful gardens, ponds, lakes, waterfalls, flora and fauna, and animals of all kinds that I could see in the distance, just like the most peaceful, beautiful setting. And then I was kind of drifted into another place where this very masculine energy, he would occasionally morph into something that looked almost human, but not really. It was more of just a energy, a
Mm-hmm.
light
A light being. Yeah.
being, and he just swayed with me, and there was symphonic music that I could hear. And he said, congratulations, you made it. And I said, made it? And he goes, you made it out of the game. And I said, what game? And
The
he's like,
Matrix.
the game. You graduated from the game on Earth. And he said,
Yeah.
congratulations. And I said, thank you. And he said, so then we danced a little bit. And he said, where do you want to go next? And I said, what do you mean? And he goes, you can go anywhere that you want. Where do you want to go next? And I said, I want to go back to Earth. And he goes, Earth? Why?
Yeah.
And I said, because I'm not done yet. And
Just
boom,
like that.
right
Yeah.
back in my body. It's like, but it gave me so much comfort. Like I no longer fear death. I
Right.
think it's probably something to look forward to, actually. And one of the things
Absolutely.
when I was in residency, I got nicknamed Dr. Death because I didn't mind being with my patients when they died. And I would choose to be with them. Like
Right.
if I was going to be the one ordering the morphine push to help them,
Yeah.
I wanted to be with them.
Yeah. You wanted to help them
So
transition.
yeah, I would transition with my patients. And occasionally you actually see
Yeah.
energy leaving the body. Not always, but for
Right.
me, about 50-50. And so they called me Dr. Death as a joke. They also called me Dr. Barbie. But medicine is very, very sexist still to this day.
That's
But
unfortunate.
30 years ago, it certainly was.
Yeah.
But it, what was I talking about? I'm so sorry. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, you were
Oh,
talking. Yeah. Okay.
I've realized death is not to be feared.
Not at all.
And it totally changes your life when you no longer fear death.
Mm-hmm.
It's like now it's just play
Mm-hmm.
because you can't threaten me with death anymore and make me feel scared,
Right. Because
you
if you
know?
take that out of the equation, and now you're
Yeah.
left with empowerment and awareness and courage, um,
Hmm.
it changes the way you create your world now.
Yeah. Courage is a great word.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes courage to carry a diagnosis like bipolar with you and
Yeah.
share it. You
Yeah.
know,
It takes courage to do all of the things you've been doing in your life path. Like that's a hard one to step into. It's really hard.
yeah, it's,
I love what you're doing with your mission and how much inspiration you're going to continue to give other people that are experiencing this because it is a extremely difficult path to walk.
yeah, it's, there's a lot of shame in
Yeah.
a mental health diagnosis, but certainly bipolar and, manic breaks are quite similar to schizophrenia. Like all
Mm-hmm.
these things become quite confused when you're in the middle of a manic break. But one of the things that I've experienced is a lot of the people that we call mentally ill are some of the sanest people I've ever met. And psych wards are filled with people that know what the world's really about. And people call them crazy and they lock them up in jail and
Well,
they
that
lock them up in psych wards for saying the truth.
right, that's the thing. That's what sets them apart. Some of those people are the most intelligent genius motherfuckers out there.
Yep.
And that kind of knowledge and that kind of expansion in general, and that tap straight into that oneness is a lot for our human bodies to handle. And I think what happens with the rest of the world that's so asleep because they're just so uncomfortable to what's unknown is, oh God, I don't know how to handle that or that information. So instead, I'm going to shut you down, tell you you're fucking insane, and treat you like that, treat you as
Hmm.
such. And that's the easiest thing for them to do with their discomfort.
So in this book, the book, I met a guy in Malibu, Jerry, he's in the book, um, a surfer dude, homeless when I met him, sleeping in his van on Pacific Coast Highway in Los Angeles. And I used to get hotel rooms at like the Four Seasons and other things like that and invite him to stay with me when I was down in LA on business. And every hotel that we would go to, the first thing he would do is he would unplug all the electronics, he would cover the TVs with blankets.
Yep.
And he was like, this is back in 2018. And he was saying things like, they're watching us through our television, the government is surveilling us. And I was just like, even though I was the manic one, I was like, oh yeah, you're full of shit, you don't know what you're talking about, but sure, go ahead and put,
Well, he's not wrong.
blankets. But now we know he's right.
Yeah, he's not
They're
wrong.
watching us through our TVs, they're
Mhm.
listening, they're recording everything that you watch, they're watching you. So who's the crazy one?
Right.
He
It's
wasn't.
funny. It's
He was
funny.
just ahead of his time.
Right. He was ahead. And it's funny because there's a part of your story that reminded me of something I used to do. You said he covered the TVs and stuff. I also went through a stage where I had to cover mirrors and
Mm.
TVs, but not for the exact same reason. Yes, because I was being watched, but not for me, it was because I can do something called scrying. So in reflective surfaces, mirrors, water, TVs, I can see the spirits like plain as day with my fit,
Oh,
like, yeah. So I would have to cover them because I could see them easier in reflections. And I would
mhm.
have to cover them just so I could be like, I have to try to do this human thing. And right now, I don't have the bandwidth for this piece of it. Even though I'm a psychic medium and I could do the things, I still knew that my human was suffering and I had to practice self-care in my human. I was like,
I
this, I
love how
don't,
you say that, my human. That's such a wonderful, respectful way to talk about our meat suits, you know?
right, because that's what it is, right? Like we just
Yeah,
have to walk around with this stupid flesh bag on.
I
And
love
and
that,
sometimes
April.
that flesh bag really does need front and center for a while.
Hmm.
And whether or not we have these abilities, it doesn't matter. Those are things that we don't have the bandwidth for, and our humans fucking saying that. So,
Right.
yeah. And so that's where we have to prioritize the human.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, being human is not easy.
No,
And
no,
I
it's
don't know
not.
if you also have heard that we uh, basically pick our path here.
Totally. Absolutely, we
And
do.
we sign a contract
We
saying
agree.
we will go through what we're about to go through. And then they give us the forget hormone. So we don't
Right.
remember anything before this lifetime. But I don't know about you, but I've had situations my entire life, starting from when I was very young, where I had vivid memories of growing
Hmm.
up in other parts of the world. And
Yeah.
then as I grew older and was able to travel all over the world,
You
I'd be
went back
like,
to those places?
I've been there. I
Yeah.
was here.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's so cool once that veil thins a little bit. But I'm sure you can appreciate this from how much of an expert you are. I can't even really talk about this kind of stuff to my family anymore because their trigger is, oh my God, she's going to get manic. She's got to go in the hospital.
Ah, right. So this is
So,
something that they go, we've seen this before. This is going to go really
yeah,
bad. Yeah.
wah, wah,
Yeah.
alert, alert,
Yeah.
watch out, Liz is getting, manic again.
Yeah.
So I can't even make like jokes with my family about a lot of things because they're just like, Are you getting manic again? And it's very subtle at first, but
Right.
my family now knows if I'm not sleeping, if I'm not eating, those are all triggers.
Well, right, but the part of that that's so unfair and a little bias is you could not be sleeping because fucking menopause or hormones. There could be all kinds of factors playing into I'm not sleeping for this reason or I'm not eating for the maybe my cortisols are elevated. That doesn't equate to mania. There's always other factors and other life happening. And so it makes it really hard. But also, that tells me too that you're still in a place where you feel responsible for their triggers and you are
Hmm.
quieting your voice because you're still trying to manage their fears, and that's their problem. That's
You're
100% their
absolutely
problem.
right, April. You're so smart.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you.
No, that's absolutely true. I'm managing their triggers
Right, you are. That's
100%.
exactly what's happening. You're going, "Oh, this is scary territory for you. Let me manage that for you." No, no, no.
Let me
That
make you
you're
comfortable.
yeah, don't do that. Don't that's where you're
So
still
interesting.
that's where you're still leading from your own people pleasing and your own, codependent mechanisms or whatever those patterns are from your own trauma, right? They're still there, right? We always have those patterns that we have to keep checking, right? Keep rechecking and taking inventory like all the time. And that's where you get to go, you know what? This is your baggage. Have fun with that. I'm going to speak my truth. You know what I mean? Like, you'll figure it out or you
I'm
won't. That's
gonna
not my problem.
use your tips and tricks. I love it. Yeah.
Well, I hope it helps. I hope it helps a lot.
Yeah. One of the things when I am manic, I, and this is in the first book, um, the other two manic episodes that I have not written books about yet because it is so salacious what I went through. So in Brilliant, Beautiful, Bipolar, I had a relationship with Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Now, I actually did meet him in the 80s in Palo Alto. And he tried to get me to go out on a date, but that's not at all related to what happened in 2018. I
Okay.
thought that Steve Jobs was communicating with me through my TV, and he was
Okay.
literally on TV and he would talk to me. And I can't explain this. I have no idea how that connection was made, but he was with me my whole time in California and provided guidance. Now, whether this was good guidance or bad guidance, I don't know. But for example, in my second manic episode, it was Elon Musk. And in my third manic episode, it was Tom Cruise. And yet I cannot explain what has happened to me, like through my phones and my TVs.
Right.
And other people saw the same things that I saw, but they think I'm crazy. So
Right.
I've had to
And they
come
probably
to,
accused you of talking to demons too, right? I'm sure you've heard that a zillion times. Oh, you're talking to demonic forces or that's Satan getting to you.
no,
You didn't hear that? Oh
no, I
God,
haven't heard
I'm so
that.
happy that you never heard that. I've heard that. I've heard it
But
all.
I actually believe that
Yeah. Okay.
because they were not always good
Ah,
interactions.
okay, gotcha.
But what I became aware of through the relationships with these people is the inner workings of their lives. So
Okay.
when I become manic, I become very intuitive about what's really going on in the world and who's doing what with whom, where, why, how.
Yeah, blown wide
And
open.
exactly, it's like you have access to a whole nother universe of information that's
Yeah,
not available on this human level.
right,
And yet, like I said to you, every single time that I've ended up in the hospital, it's been because my openness to all this manic goodness also allowed negative entities to come in.
right.
And you know, if I start telling my family, which I have in the past, oh hey, I've heard from Tom Cruise today, they're like, we need to go to the hospital, you know, like this isn't real. And yet it was real. I mean, it's just, it's so weird, April. I feel like I have two lives. I have this human life, and then I have this life that I've experienced way outside of the human realm.
Hmm.
but I have to contain it, and package it and keep it hidden.
Right.
And like, for example, I don't know if I could write the 2 books about the next 2 times that I was manic because, like I said, it's so salacious. Like what I learned from getting inside the heads of some of these very famous people is what we're learning now in the Epstein files.
Hmm.
That kind of stuff is
Hmm.
what I was learning about in 2018 to 2025. My last
Right.
psych admission was a year ago.
But
So,
what I feel like, so it's crazy in the sense that like spirit will bring forward whatever information in whatever form. And sometimes if they're using, Steve Jobs or Elon Musk and you have some sort of familiarity with that, I'm going to call it a male authority figure, and that feels more comfortable and less foreign to you, then they'll use that as like a little segue to bring information to you. It doesn't mean that it's evil. It doesn't mean that it's negative. It's just something that you happen to be privy to in the moment, and your human's still not digesting it, right? So it does appear kind of crazy or whatever to somebody else that doesn't know how to sit with information like that. Does that make sense?
yeah, and what I realized over time, a lot of time since 2018, I've learned to keep my mouth shut now. So when, like this last manic episode a year ago, a little bit over a year, I stopped talking about what I was experiencing and feeling because it was scaring my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've just learned to like keep a lot of my information and knowledge that I learn private. And that may not be the best thing, but it's how I
But it's what
maintain
you're
it.
doing right now.
It's what I have to do to stay kosher with my family, so that they're not saying, oh, we better go to the doctor or the hospital or
Well,
something.
and that just means that your family's not your audience, right? That's really what it comes down to. They don't have the bandwidth to experience or even have an understanding of your experience, and that's okay. That doesn't make it right, wrong, or indifferent. It just means they're not your audience. That's all it
Right.
means, right? But I totally get like being in that place where it's like, I don't know how to share this with them. And it's hard because you're grieving a connection. Like you want to be vulnerable and open with your family. That's what you want to do. But the fact of
Hmm.
the matter is they don't have the spiritual um, experience or the awakening they've not experienced themselves, right?
Hmm.
To hold that space for you in a safe way where they're not going to like retaliate or freak out or whatever, right? And it's really hard to let go of that connection of what once was because now you have to grieve that too. Like I think we've talked about this identity loss, right? So it's like there are so
Hmm.
many parts that are contributing factors to like all these pieces, all these versions of us that are dying off and new ones being born and all the things. And that a lot of times is that I know that I've had a lot of massive transformations with my family members too. I still do.
Yeah. It's a self-protection
Mhm.
mechanism to just keep things to myself, but it's sad. But when I was first a novice manic, um, everything was so exciting and I wanted to share it with people. I wanted to tell them what I had
Right.
learned and I was so excited
It's
and
like when you're in
I
love and you want to shout it from the
yeah,
rooftops. You're like, everybody has to know this. Yeah. But the
exactly.
thing
And yet
is that's where you learn not everybody does have to know this. Not everybody
not everybody.
has the framework to absorb that information. Not everybody's your audience. And that's the part where you get to learn discernment and it can be very challenging.
Yeah, you said a word that really hit home, and that is grief.
Yep.
And it is a grieving process, and it's a very lonely process. If you
Oh,
watch
so
social
yeah.
media and stuff, you'll come across those videos that talk about awakening and how lonely it is.
Hmm.
Well, the same thing's true for mania
Hmm.
because it's very isolating. I got told by some consultants that I had hired once for one of my companies, and they were like, we don't know what to do with you. I mean, we were on different coasts. They were in New York and I was in the Pacific Northwest. So they would wake up in the morning and there'd be 50 emails or, like phone calls. And like I'd be up all night working,
Right.
just pumping out the work and excited and everything. And they're like, oh, what do we do with, Liz? She's just like nonstop energy and excitement. But, it got me to a lot of good places in my life. I can't, you
Right.
know, crap on the bipolar entirely because it got me to where I got in life.
Well, and that's the point in you signing up for this mission, right? You made this agreement because those were stepping stones that you agreed to uh, for as a catalyst for other things. And so that's why there's that none of this is wrong. None of it's wrong at all. It doesn't always fucking feel good, but
Mhm.
none of it's actually wrong, right? It's exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's great to have psychic abilities. It's really great. And it's great to be awake. And it's great to know that this is a game. And this is the so what the game is, what I got from my telepathic, transition up to heaven in my mind was the game is all about love.
Yep.
That's it.
That's all
When
it
I was
is.
up there, the only thing I could feel was like this
Yeah.
love so intense, I thought my heart was going to burst.
Right.
And that's all it is. There's only two emotions. There's love or fear. And fear is hate, evil, greed, anger, you
Which
name it.
also comes from love, right? All those feelings even are they come from love. They come from a place of being hurt, having your heart broken. It all is still love.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So insightful you are. Um, and so that's the game. It doesn't matter what you achieve down here. It matters how you treat people. It matters,
Yeah.
are you a good human? Um, and then just love,
Yeah.
love, love, love.
Yeah.
All, and it's not a woo-woo thing at all. It's a real hardcore way to live your life out of love.
Right. Yeah. And
But
we all
the one thing I was going to say, when I first started getting all of these manic ideas that would then give me access to more information out there, I wanted everyone to know what I knew.
right. Yeah.
And you just can't, the world doesn't necessarily want to know what you know.
Right. Well, the world does, but you have to figure out which ones in the world do, right?
Mhm.
Like it's part of the process is figuring out who your audience is, right? Like when you're writing a book and you're marketing, you've got your like target audience and shit. It's the same thing. Like who's
Mm.
your audience for these stories? Because
I'll
that's,
tell you some of the best conversations I've ever had about topics of life and why are we here and what are we doing have been in the psych ward with the crazies, with the homeless
you
schizophrenics
probably got
that
the best advice ever in places
they
like
know
that.
exactly what's going
Yeah.
on in the world, and
Yeah.
so it does give you a whole different perspective on the world and on the world of the mentally ill. I now
Yeah.
see that homeless person that's schizophrenic may be more sane than your average psychopath in,
Totally.
the CEO's suite.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just that they aren't given the same respect and, stage that proper people are,
Yeah. Yeah. Their basic human needs aren't even being met at all.
Right. It's
Yeah.
really tragic.
It is. It's really sad. Liz, I think you have been an absolute amazing guest to have, and I'm loving the inspiration that I'm getting from our
Likewise.
conversation. Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
love that you're putting out these books. I think that there's so much value and such a need for for that kind of help for everybody that's struggling with any sort of identity loss, mental health, mental illness, whatever that is. And even just like life transitions, like with career, because you have such an
Mhm.
experience even in that too. And so I think that this is really good information. And I just want to tell you
Yeah.
thank you for being here with me today.
Well, thank you. You are just delightful and you have so much insight, April.
Thank you.
Wow.
It comes at a cost, girl, as you know, it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost. Not free, unfortunately, right? Like it's like sweat, blood, tears, all the things. It's expensive, but we
We
get
got to
there
stick together like sisters.
for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that is there anything else you want to add before we end it?
Um,
Do I have your
no,
links for
just
your books? I think I do, right? The links for your books, I have them in the top
I'll make
form.
sure you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I
Learning to
have them.
Heal and then Brilliant, Beautiful, Bipolar.
Yeah, I think I have them in the top form. So I'll post them with
Yeah,
the
the
show
the
notes.
Learning to Heal was just published last week, so the
Ah,
audiobook's coming out next week.
congratulations. That's such a big
Yeah,
deal.
thank you.
Actually, I love
Thank
that
you.
you're podcasting with me right when that happens. That's actually perfect.
Yeah.
Such a divine timing there. That's great. Okay, well then if
Well,
you don't
thank you
have,
so much.
yeah, thank you. If you don't have anything else to add, I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. Bye, you
Okay.
guys. See you guys next time.
Bye.